Day in, day out, it's the same. The klaxons blare, wrenching me from a slumber that offers no respite. My sleep is dreamless now, a void where once there were hopes and ambitions. I used to dream when I was young, dream of something more. I'd gaze up at the upper levels of the Hive and imagine a better life, maybe a cushy job in the administratum, or even a post with the Planetary Defense Force. But never, in all my youthful aspirations, did I envision myself ending up here, toiling away in manufactorum 47-9A. My father worked here, as did his father before him, and his father before that, a long dreary line of pain, sweat, and exhaustion stretching back generations. My hab is little more than a steel box, one among countless others, all stacked together in the endless sprawl of the Hive. I've visited the other habs in my block, and it's unsettling how identical they are. The same narrow bed, same cramped quarters, same stale, poorly filtered air. It's as if the walls themselves are conspiring to crush any individuality, any spark of life. It takes an enormous effort to crawl out of bed these days. There was once a time when I took pride in my work, when I believed that I was serving the God Emperor in my own small way. But now it's just drudgery, an endless cycle of toil with no end in sight. Maybe today will be different. Maybe the shift wardens will show a shred of mercy, and I won't feel the electric, nerve-searing jolt of a prod in my back for not moving fast enough. Maybe the food will have some semblance of flavor, won't just be the usual mix of ground-up paste, wood chips, and stale, unidentifiable simulated meat. The thought almost makes me laugh as I pull my threadbare uniform over my head, buttoning the collar with weary fingers. On that same foolish note, maybe I'll sprout a pair of wings, ascend to his holy throne, and be declared a saint. Unlikely. A glance in the cracked mirror that hangs on the wall of my hab, the reflection greeting me like an old enemy. The stubble on my chin, the hollowed-out eyes, the pale, sickly skin. These are the marks of a life drained of vitality. My cheekbones are sharp, my collarbone jutting out beneath the thin fabric of my shirt, all telltale signs of the latest round of ration cuts. The excuse was the same as always. A shipment didn't arrive on time, so they had to cut their losses. My brown eyes are sunken, shadowed by dark rings that have become a permanent fixture. I've grown accustomed to the gaunt face staring back at me, a face that belongs more to a ghost than a living man. But even so, I can't bear to look at it for long. There's too much honesty in those eyes, too much misery. It's easier to look away, to focus on the mundane routine ahead, and push down the nagging realization that this life, this endless cycle of toil and exhaustion, is all there is. The klaxons blare again, the sound reverberating through my skull, a daily reminder that the grind never stops. When I was younger, I used to mimic them, shouting back with a child's playful abandon. I was innocent then, blissfully unaware of what those sounds truly meant. I never understood why my father would leave so quickly when they called, why his face would harden as he marched out the door. My mother never explained it to me, never told me what that shrill call demanded of him. All I know now is that he died in an accident, like so many others. Another nameless soul lost in the relentless march to fuel the Imperium's war machine. The second call blares, more insistent now, a warning, the Hive's way of keeping time. I know what comes next if I don't make it to my station by the fourth call. They'll prod me, jolt me with that excruciating pain that leaves your nerves screaming. I step into my worn boots, tying the frayed laces with fingers that have long since lost their dexterity. I can't help but wonder if what I do even matters anymore. I've been told I'm good at my job. I don't ask questions. I do everything I can to stay in line. to avoid drawing attention. But in the grand scheme of things, does it really make a difference? I step outside my hab and into the streets. It's raining again. It always rains. I look up, staring at the grey expanse above, wishing I could see the sky. But this far down, the sky is a distant memory, obscured by criss-crossing bridges, the passing hovercars, and the towering spires that rise above us like the fingers of a giant choking out the light. The rain filters down here in thin, grimy rivulets, winding through the cracks and crevices of the hive. I see desperate mothers huddled by the walls, clutching small battered buckets, trying to catch what little water they can. Outside of our strictly rationed showers and water supply, it's all the nourishment they'll get. The worst part is the water itself. By the time it reaches us, it's filthy, tainted with the grime and pollution it picks up as it filters through the hive. There's an iridescent sheen to it, a sickly rainbow of chemicals and waste. Some say you can ignite it if you're desperate enough to try, but finding a source of fire down here is another challenge entirely. I squint up at the sky again, or at least where the sky used to be, lost beyond layers of metal and stone. I bet they have clean water up there, I think to myself, where the spires pierce the heavens, where the wealthy and powerful dwell. They live a different life, far removed from the squalor and decay down here in the depths. It's a bitter thought, but it's one that crosses my mind every time I see those distant towers, gleaming like a cruel promise that will never be fulfilled. The walk to the manufactorum isn't long. Just a few blocks, but those few blocks are a minefield of danger. You learn quickly to keep your eyes on the road ahead, to never let your gaze wander too far. One look at the wrong person, and you could find yourself dragged into a dark alley, never to be seen again. And it's not that no one will hear you scream. Oh, they'll hear you, but they won't lift a finger to help if they know what's good for them. The Adeptus Arbites aren't much better. They stand watch as we shuffle by, eyes cold and judging, seeing nothing but filth and potential criminals. To them, every one of us is guilty of something. It's just a matter of time before we prove them right. When I was younger, I witnessed a man get clubbed down into the muck by a group of Arbites. They beat him bloody, left him there to rot in the gutter. The story they spread was that he'd stolen from the local chapel, taking something sacred. It wasn't until much later that I learned the truth. He hadn't paid his tithe to the emperor that month, using what little he had to buy his family a can of rations instead. It's a lot more common than anyone would like to admit. People choosing between feeding their loved ones and paying their dues, only to be punished for it. Down here, life is cheap, and mercy is a rare commodity. The streets are filled with the hollow faces of those who know that any day could be their last, and the Arbites watch over it all, ensuring that order is maintained, no matter the cost. It takes longer than I would have liked. There was a time when I rushed to work with a spring in my step, a hymn to him on terror echoing in my heart. But those days are long gone, faded like the vibrant colours of youth. Now, a few grey hairs have begun to sprout here and there, a stark reminder of the passage of time and the erosion of hope. Manufactorum 47-9A looms before me, an ugly beast of a structure. Its walls are a grim fortress of ferrocrete with crenellations and stone cherubs awkwardly juxtapositioned against the cold industrial sprawl. Stacks rise from its roof, belching thick, acrid smoke into the already polluted air. As I approach, the third klaxon blares, a jarring reminder that time waits for no one. The massive doors to the manufactorum creak open like the maw of some ancient beast, spewing forth the night shift workers. They shuffle past me in silence, their eyes hollow, their faces devoid of expression. In 14 hours or so, I'll be just like them, drained, numb, and ready to stagger home to the same grim existence. I step inside and immediately I feel the cold mechanical gaze of the servo skulls tracking my movements. They flit about like sinister insects, delivering messages to the overseers, the brutes in charge of this forsaken place. This manufactorum, like so many others, is under the dominion of the Adeptus Mechanicus. I pass one of them, an engine seer clad in the red robes of their order, and have to suppress a shudder. They don't even notice me. To them, I'm nothing more than chattel, a necessary but weak and expendable cog in their vast, unfeeling machine. I've heard the tales, how those red robes are dyed with the sands of Mars, the sacred birthplace of their order. But to me, they seem more like a cover, a way to hide the blood of the countless victims who fall victim to the manufactorum's relentless demands. Blood spilled on an hourly basis, soaked into the very foundations of this place, ignored by those who see only the purity of the machine, not the suffering of the flesh that fuels it. I reach my station with mere seconds to spare before the fourth call. Another worker isn't so fortunate. The overseer, with a twisted grin, jabs his prod into the unfortunate soul, sending him crashing to the ground in a fit of twitching screams and violent spasms. I do my best to block it out, to focus on the task at hand. My hands, well trained by years of repetitive motion, reach out on their own and grab my tools. It's automatic now, muscle memory taking over where thought used to be. I've been doing this job for too long. My task is simple, yet its consequences are dire. My line produces power packs for lasguns, the lifeblood of the Imperial Guard. My role is to test the power level of each pack. Too high, and the pack could overload and explode in a soldier's hands. Too low, and the gun won't fire, no matter how fervently the sacred litanies are uttered. The work is monotonous, but the stakes are painfully real. Just as I'm about to begin, I feel a sharp lash across my back. Pain explodes through me, and I grit my teeth, a shout of agony escaping as I'm brought to one knee. A priest, if it can still be called that, with all the augments twisted into its flesh, looms over me, its body language radiating anger and impatience. Whether it's a he or she, I can't tell anymore. The distinction is lost under layers of metal and circuitry. The priest gestures angrily at me, and then, with a touch of reverence to the cogitator at my station. The screeching binaric that follows is a harsh rebuke, and it takes me a moment to realize my mistake. In this Mechanicus-run facility, I have committed a grave sin. I had forgotten to perform the sacred rite of activation before beginning my work. The tech priest likely believes I've angered the machine spirit within the cogitator, and my carelessness could bring down the wrath of the Omnissiah himself. But to me, it's all a bunch of hogwash. There's no divine spirit inhabiting the machine, just circuits, wires, and cold metal. All I did was flip a switch. But in this place, appearances are everything, and forgetting the ritual is tantamount to heresy. I mutter the words of the rite under my breath, more to appease the priest than any machine spirit, and flip the switch with a necessary reverence. The tech priest watches closely, its augmetic eyes glaring at me until the cogitator hums to life. Satisfied, it finally backs away, leaving me to continue my work with the sting of the lash still burning across my back. As I slowly rise, wincing from the lingering pain in my back, I feel a firm grip on my arm. I look up and see a familiar face, Ari, my shift lead. There's a weariness in her eyes, but also a hint of something warmer, something more human than the cold, mechanical indifference that surrounds us every day. Despite the endless drudgery, there's something about Ari that draws people to her, a spark that hasn't been extinguished by the endless grind of the manufactorum. She's like a diamond in the rough, a rare glimmer of light in a world that's otherwise dark and unforgiving. She's built a small, close-knit group of workers around her, and somehow I found myself among them.
You look like shit, Barddus,
she says, her voice tinged with concern. I meet her gaze, and for a moment it feels like I'm falling into a deep, calming pool of water. Her eyes are striking blue, and as I look into them, I can feel the weight of my cynicism and exhaustion start to lift, if only a little. There's something about her presence that makes the oppressive atmosphere of the manufactorum feel less suffocating. You wouldn't look any better if one of those priests had hit you with a mechadendrite, I reply, attempting to inject some of my usual sarcasm into my voice, but the edge softens in her presence. The urge to grumble, to let my natural cynicism show, fades away in the warmth of that fathomless blue gaze. It's strange how just a look from her can make the world feel a little less bleak, a little less hopeless. Ari smiles faintly, a small, weary smile, but it is genuine, and in this place, that is something rare. It's enough to help me push through the pain and the weariness, to remind me that maybe, just maybe, there's still some small comfort to be found, even in the darkest of places. Another thing I've noticed about Ari is that she's physically filled out, a stark contrast to the gaunt, half-starved figures of the rest of us. There's a healthy flush in her cheeks, a robustness to her form that speaks of someone who's getting by better than the rest. I know what that sounds like, but at 45 standard years, I'm far too old for romantic trysts or any of that youthful nonsense. It's not that. She's just more well off, somehow physically stronger, in a way that makes me wonder. I should be suspicious, should question how she's managed to maintain herself in a place where most of us are worn down to skin and bone. But something in the back of my mind soothes that doubt, eases it away like water down a sluice pipe. I let the thought slide, unexamined, and focus instead on the here and now. She looks at me and frowns, her expression darkening.
You know, they shouldn't be allowed to do that.
Her voice strong and confident, tinged with a righteous anger that I haven't heard in a long time. There's a part of me that wants to hush her, to protect her from the consequences of speaking out. Here, voicing such thoughts can lead to prods, beatings, or worse, being turned into a mindless servitor, stripped of all humanity. But she doesn't stop, despite the warning in my eyes.
They see us as little more than cattle. Without us, this manufactorum would cease to function.
The words resonate with me, an almost perfect echo of the thoughts I've kept buried deep inside. I find myself nodding in agreement, her defiance stirring something within me. It's not anger, though at least not entirely. There's something else, something that flickers and grows in the pit of my stomach. Is it hope? Or maybe the first stirrings of something stronger, something that's been smothered for too long. I can't quite place it, but it's there, simmering beneath the surface. In her voice, I hear a challenge to the despair that's clung to me for so long, a call to remember that we are more than just the sum of our toil, more than the cogs in their vast, uncaring machine. She moves around the room with a presence that feels almost otherworldly, like a saint from the tales of the Great Crusade and his 9 holy sons. My eyes are drawn to her, unable to look away, as if she carries some unseen light within her.
A time is coming soon when we will no longer need to worry about this misery, when we will be free.
Her words hold me captive, the sound of her voice drowning out everything else around me.
For now, we shall sit and wait. But when that time comes...
She leaves the rest unsaid, letting the unspoken promise hang in the air. The other workers begin to disperse, and I'm left wondering why, until I notice them. Servo skulls hovering in the high archways, their lenses focusing on us, watching, recording. They whir and click ominously, and for a moment the tension is palpable, but then, as if satisfied, they drift away, disappearing into the shadows. Ari walks over to me, placing a hand on my shoulder. Her touch is surprisingly gentle, and she leans in close, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, like a lover sharing a secret meant only for my ears.
The time is fast approaching, Barddus. If you hear the call, Answer it.
Her words send a shiver down my spine. Before I can respond, she's gone, walking away with that same calm, assured stride. I'm left standing there, feeling something I haven't felt in a long time. Hope, maybe, or something close to it. It is disorienting, almost like I've been swept up in a wave of euphoria. I've never been an Obscura user, but I've known those who are. They talk about the drug like it's a fleeting escape, a bliss that washes away all the pain, only to come crashing down with a weight of guilt and despair when it wears off. This feeling, it's similar. There's a rush, a strange sense of clarity, but then it leaves me with a sudden emptiness, like I'm missing a part of myself that I didn't even know was there. Her departure leaves a void, and I'm not sure what to do with it. The routine, the monotony of the day feels even more oppressive now, and yet there's a part of me that clings to her words, to the promise of something beyond this endless grind. For the first time in years, I feel a spark, small but undeniable. What that spark will ignite, I don't yet know, but I can't shake the feeling that something is coming, something that could change everything. The remains of the day drag on, and without Ari's presence, the hours stretch painfully long. It's always been drudgery, this endless grind of mindless labor, the brief breaks offering little more than a chance to stand around in silence, waiting for something, anything to happen. No one talks, no one plays cards or engages in any distraction. We just exist, counting down the moments until the next round of toil. Meal breaks are no better. Usually a joyless affair where the food is as bleak as the conversation. But today, something is different. As I shuffle through the motions, I catch snippets of conversation here and there. Whispers pass from worker to worker, furtive glances exchanged with words like, "The time is coming," or "Get yourself ready." These phrases fill me with a sense of unease, a gnawing anxiety that I can't quite place. It's strange, unsettling even, because when Ari spoke earlier, her words had left me feeling strangely invigorated, as if a light had been kindled within me. But now, hearing these whispers, the same sentiments feel different, darker, more threatening. When the day finally ends, I'm disgorged from the manufactorum with the rest of the weary workers, all of us spilling out into the grim streets like a tide of broken bodies. To say I'm tired would be the understatement of the century. My muscles feel like jelly, every movement sending a fresh wave of pain through my worn-out body. My joints creak with every step, and it's all I can do to put one foot in front of the other. I don't remember the walk to my hab. The journey passes in a blur, each step automatic, my mind dulled by exhaustion. I don't remember walking through the door, and I'm not even sure I remember shutting it behind me, locking myself in the small, sterile space I call home. The last thing I recall is collapsing onto my bed, not even bothering to strip down properly. Sleep takes me before I can think another thought, dragging me under into a darkness that is, for once, mercifully deep and dreamless. But even in sleep, the unease lingers, a shadow at the edge of my mind. Ari's words, the whispers from the other workers, they echo faintly in the back of my head. Something is changing, shifting in the air, and even as I sink into unconsciousness, I can't shake the feeling that whatever is coming, it's not something I'm ready for. I don't normally dream, but this time I did. It was, and still is, one of the most vivid experiences I've ever had. I found myself floating in an endless void, surrounded by stars that stretched out into infinity. My thoughts drifted aimlessly, and there was a strange peace in that nothingness. I felt nothing, saw nothing, just an endless expanse of dark and light, like the space between breaths. Then, in a sudden burst of light, everything changed. My senses were flooded with an overwhelming feeling of reverence and joy, a sensation so pure and intense that it took my breath away. For a fleeting moment, I believed I stood in the presence of him on Terra, that I was basking in the light of the God Emperor himself. But it wasn't him. The being before me was something else entirely. They were larger than life, haloed in the radiant light of distant stars. Their body was encased in resplendent purple armor, each plate shimmering with a subtle otherworldly energy. Their skin was a delicate shade of grey, beautiful in its simplicity, and despite their many arms, I felt no fear, only a profound sense of connection. It was as if this being resonated with something deep within me, something I hadn't known existed until that moment. Hope, liberation, a chance for my future. These feelings surged within me as I gazed upon this being. They raised a great hand toward our planet, and in an instant I saw it all, the planet burning, the petty nobles falling one by one. The being called forth their angels, their children who descended like liberators, bringing freedom to the downtrodden. It was a vision of something I'd long forgotten. Joy, pure and untainted, the kind I hadn't felt since I was a child. In that dream, tears streamed down my face, tears of joy, of relief, of something I couldn't fully understand, but didn't want to let go of. When the klaxon blared, jolting me awake for another day, I found my cheeks soaked, as was my pillow. The sense of overwhelming joy from the dream lingered, transcending the boundaries of sleep and filling me physically, like a warmth that refused to fade. As I lay there staring at the ceiling of my hab, I couldn't shake the feeling that the dream meant something profound and life-altering. It wasn't just a dream. It was a promise, a glimpse of a future that could be mine, and for the first time in a long time I felt alive. I rise out of bed with a bit more enthusiasm than usual. There's an energy inside me that I haven't felt in a very long time, a spark that pushes me forward. The second klaxon almost startles me as I'm already in the bathroom, dressed and ready before the call even comes. For the first time in years, I look into the mirror and see something different. A face with less shame and pain. The lines etched into my skin seem to have softened, as if that deep sleep had begun to erase the wear and tear of years. It dawns on me that I have been like a caged animal all these years, trapped within the confines of my small, dreary hab, waiting for something, anything to break free. Ari's words echo in my mind, and with them comes a realization. That had to be it. That had to be the call. Whatever it was, I wanted more. If that dream, that overwhelming sense of joy and liberation was what she was offering, I needed it. I craved it. The feeling was intoxicating, like a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. As I walked out of the door of my hab, I paused for a few seconds, an inexplicable hesitation gripping me. Despite this newfound spark within, there's a lingering sense of unease, a small nagging doubt that I can't quite shake. Something about all of this doesn't sit right. It's all too good, too perfect, and in my experience, when things seem too good to be true, there's usually something wrong lurking just beneath the surface. As I step outside, the cold rain washes over me, soaking my uniform to the bone. The frigid water is almost cleansing, washing away those lingering doubts as it chills me to the core. With each step toward the manufactorum, I feel that spring in my step return, stronger than ever. For once, there's a reason to live. Maybe, just maybe, there's something more than the endless grind. I need to find Ari. I need to understand what this is all about, what this feeling means, and why it's stirring something so powerful within me. As I walk through the rain-soaked streets, my thoughts swirl with possibilities, with a desperate need for answers. Whatever is happening, Whatever this new force is, I have to know more. I have to find out if this is the beginning of something greater, or if it's just another illusion in a world full of them. The walk to work passes quickly. I can feel the eyes on me as I move through the crowded streets. My newfound exuberance is like a beacon, drawing attention whether I want it or not. I catch the stares, some filled with fear, others with confusion, as if they're watching someone who's cracked under the strain. My brain turned to mush by the endless drudgery. A few people make a point to step out of my way, avoiding me like I'm contagious. But there are others too, who watch with a lingering curiosity, drawn in by the unusual sight of someone showing genuine positivity in a place where it's usually beaten out of us. As I approach the manufactorum, the looming structure doesn't fill me with the usual dread. The architecture, with its towering walls and oppressive design, is meant to crush the spirit, to remind us all of our insignificance in the grand machine. But today, that sense of smallness doesn't take hold of me. It feels strange, almost foreign, to stand before the beast and not feel the weight of it pressing down on my soul. As I step inside, I wave at the foreman, a small act that feels almost defiant in its casualness. He glares at me, clearly unsettled by my behavior. "Just 'cause you're early, don't mean you get any extra rations," he shouts after me, his voice tinged with a mix of irritation and confusion. But I don't let it get to me. There's no need. He doesn't understand. How could he? He's just another cog, just like I was. But now I think I'm starting to see the bigger picture, starting to grasp something beyond the endless grind. It's as if the veil has been lifted, revealing a path that was always there, just waiting for someone to find it. As I move deeper into the manufactorum, the usual sounds of machinery and the ever-present stench of sweat and smoke don't seem to affect me as they used to. The air feels lighter, the walls less oppressive. For the first time in years, I feel something that might be hope, and it's enough to keep me moving forward, no matter how strange or unsettling it might be. I move to my section with a newfound sense of purpose, a feeling that I haven't had in as long as I can remember. As I settle into my routine, I notice the same energy in my fellow workers, those who had listened to Ari's words the previous day. There's a quiet intensity in the air, an unspoken connection between us, as if we're all waiting for something. The shift passes quickly, faster than I anticipated, as if time itself has sped up in response to our shared anticipation. Suddenly, I feel a gentle tap on my shoulder. I turn to see Ari standing behind me, her expression serious, a stark contrast to the warmth she'd shown the day before.
Barddus, we need to talk. Come with me.
Without hesitation, I follow her through the narrow hallways and winding passages of the munitorium. There's a sense of unease that gnaws at me, the feeling that what we're doing is wrong, clandestine even. But Ari's presence remains steady, a beacon of calm confidence that soothes my nerves. It's as if just being near her inspires a quiet strength, a belief that everything will be all right, no matter how precarious the situation might feel. We enter a side passage, one of the few areas out of sight of the ever-watchful servo skulls. The shadows here are thicker, the silence more profound, offering a rare moment of privacy in a place where secrecy is almost impossible.
Sorry about the tone. I don't want them to catch on to anything.
She gives me a once-over, her eyes appraising the changes in my appearance and demeanor since we last spoke. There's a pause, a deliberate moment of silence, as if she's a stage orator building the tension before delivering a key line.
You heard it, didn't you? The call.
I think so. My voice is hesitant, as if a small part of me doesn't want to acknowledge the dream, to give it weight and reality. I saw something in my sleep last night. I felt something. Happiness. Joy even. Her eyes light up, twinkling with a pleased satisfaction at my admission. She gives me a warm smile, like a mentor seeing a student grasp something critically life-altering.
Yes, that was it. Did you feel it? The joy, the promise.
Her enthusiasm is infectious, like a buoy in a stormy sea, keeping me afloat amidst the uncertainty. She holds my gaze, and once again, I feel that strange sensation of being drawn into a deep, tranquil pool of water. Any lingering hesitation is washed away, my inhibitions drowned in the depths of those unwavering blue eyes.
There is a movement coming, Barddus. One that will change everything. Soon our voices will be heard, and those above who have lorded over us will be brought low. Is that something you want to be a part of?
The question sinks deep within me, stirring a conflict between years of indoctrination and the new intoxicating hope she offers. What she's talking about is nothing short of heresy, revolution against the God Emperor himself. I should be repulsed, disgusted, angry even. I should report her to the overseers, purge the taint of such thoughts from my mind. But the vision she offers, a life free from toil and pain, pulls at me with an almost irresistible force. I feel my habitual resistance, the instinctual resolve to cling to what I've always known, begin to falter. Slowly, almost unconsciously at first, I find myself nodding. The motion gains momentum, and soon I'm nodding with genuine enthusiasm, a growing conviction taking root in my heart.
Good,
she says, beaming at me with a genuine happiness that's almost startling in its warmth. She presses something into my palm, a crumpled piece of parchment.
Meet me at these coordinates. 8th call.
I look down at the parchment, my mind stirring with conflicting thoughts. But Ari's words, her smile, her unwavering confidence, they hold me steady, guiding me toward a decision I never thought I'd make. I slip the parchment into my pocket, feeling its weight like a promise of something more, something I never dared hope for. My shift ends, and despite the weariness that settles in my old bones, there's an undeniable energy coursing through me, a sense of excitement that I haven't felt in years. I head home with a spring in my step, a fevered mix of anticipation stirring within me, yet there's also a lingering sense of wrongness, like a small stubborn part of me deep inside, a willful child refusing to obey their parent, trying to resist the pull of what's to come. When I arrive at my hab, I don't bother stripping down or attempting my rationed shower. The excitement buzzing through me is too strong to be dampened by routine. My hab mates give me strange looks, their eyes filled with a weariness I recognize as if from a distant memory, a life that feels so far removed from this moment. They don't say anything, just watch me with a cautious curiosity, as if they're unsure of what's driving me. I try to sleep, but the fevered thoughts rushing through my mind refuse to quiet down. I sit up in bed, staring into the dimness of my hab, my heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and unease. Time crawls by, each minute stretching into eternity, until finally the 7th klaxon blares into the streets, jolting me from my restless thoughts. I quickly get up, moving with a furtive urgency. I glance around to make sure everyone else is asleep, their forms unmoving in the dark. The stillness in the room contrasts sharply with the turmoil inside me, a stark reminder of how different this night feels. The decision to move forward with Ari's plan feels both exhilarating and terrifying, but the pull is too strong to resist. With one last look around, I slip out, the parchment in my pocket like a burning promise against my skin. I step outside, and the first thing I notice is the absence of rain. It always rains on Argentum Prime. Sometimes it's a caustic downpour that melts your skin if you're unlucky enough to get caught in it. Other times the rain is thick and oily, clinging to your skin like a second layer that you can never quite scrub off. But tonight, there's no rain, and the silence that accompanies it is unsettling, almost oppressive. The time I'm leaving is between shifts, so the streets are empty. save for the sorts of people who thrive in the shadows, gangers, mutants, and other creatures of the night. The thought makes me hesitate, a flicker of doubt gnawing at my resolve. The people out at this hour are trouble. Does that make me trouble too? Am I a heretic for wanting something better, for stepping out of line in a world where conformity is survival? I shake off the doubt, forcing myself to move toward the coordinates written on the crumpled parchment. The path leads me to an elevator I never knew existed, tucked away in the back alleys, hidden from view. It's off to the left, far from the safety of the main road. In all my years, I've never dared to stray from the well-trodden paths. Too dangerous. People who do so often disappear, swallowed by the darkness, never to be seen again. Yet here I am, stepping into that darkness, driven by a need for something more, something better. The silence around me is unnerving, but it also feels like a sign, a strange foreboding permission from the universe itself. With a deep breath, I push forward, the cold air biting at my skin, the unease settling into my bones as I approach the hidden elevator.
There you are.
The voice nearly makes me jump out of my skin, my nerves frayed and on edge. I feel like a rat caught in a trap, my heart pounding in my chest. I spin around, ready to fight or flee. But when I see who it is, all the tension drains from me. Ari stands there, but she's not in her usual work clothes. She's wearing a robe of some kind, its material hard to discern in the dim light. The sight of her, like this, so different, throws me off balance. She motions for me to hurry, her movements quick and anxious as she glances up, scanning for any prying eyes. The sense of how clandestine this meeting is hits me hard, and that uneasy feeling in my gut returns with a vengeance. But being near her, feeling her presence so close, dulls the edge of my anxiety. It's enough to push the doubt to the back of my mind, at least for now. She steps up to the elevator and quickly keys in a series of codes. The grated doors creak open with a sound that echoes through the silent alley. She steps in first, reaching out to grab my hand, pulling me along.
Come on.
Her voice carries a sense of urgency that I've never heard before. It sets off alarms in my head, and I start to wonder why she's in such a hurry. With a lurch, the elevator begins to descend, pulling us down into the lower levels of the Hive. Panic starts to bubble up in my throat. These elevators are designed to go only one way, down. It's a security measure, meant to keep the underhivers and mutant scum from reaching the surface. As the reality of where we're headed sinks in, I start to wonder, how does Ari have the codes to move between levels? How deep does this go? The questions churn in my mind, mixing with a fear that this is all spiraling out of my control. But as the elevator clatters downward, there's no turning back now. We descend further and further into the bowels of the Hive city, swallowed whole by layers of ferrocrete and rusted iron pipes. The farther down we go, the more my unease grows, coiling tighter around my chest. The oppressive weight of the Hive above seems to press down on me, and my thoughts churn with doubt and fear. Apparently it shows on my face, because Ari glances at me and places a reassuring hand on my shoulder.
Calm down, Barddus.
She soothes, her voice like a balm against my frayed nerves.
We are going to meet the leader. The individual who will bring about the new age of freedom I promised you.
Trepidation rises in my heart, a cold knot of anxiety. But then, those deep, fathomless blue eyes meet mine again. There's something about her gaze, something that reaches into me and quiets the storm of doubt. All my worries seem to drip away, leaving only a calm certainty that what I'm doing is right. She turns back to the control panel and keys in a few more codes, and with a grating halt, the elevator comes to a stop. The doors creak open, and we step out into what feels like another world. As I take in my surroundings, a few things start to click into place, realizations I never wanted to confront before. I've always thought that we, the workers, got the scraps of the nobility above us. Their garbage polluted our water, their waste brought our diseases, and their lashes demanded our toil. This was the reality, the grim truth that I had always accepted as part of life in the Hive. But down here is so much worse. I see it now, the true depths of the Hive's decay. We may get the garbage from above, but I never once considered where our own filth and refuse ended up. Down here it festers. Piles of trash build up in great heaving mounds, forming mountains of debris and detritus. People dressed in little more than rags and armed with whatever scrap they can find dig through the refuse, scavenging for anything of value. It's a bleak existence, one I can barely stomach to witness. As we walk, I see a young boy holding up a piece of shiny metal, his eyes wide with wonder, as if he's just been handed a gift from the God Emperor himself. The sight makes my heart clench. A child finding joy in a scrap of trash in a world where joy is as scarce as clean water. As we continue deeper into this forsaken place, I start to notice strange sigils painted on the walls. The Aquilus of the Imperium, once proud symbols of our faith and duty, have been defaced with a vibrant purple paint. The new symbol depicts a gaping fanged head with a curved, ridged spine that sweeps forward, forming a shape that vaguely resembles a crescent moon. I'm not sure what it means, but a cold shiver runs down my spine as I realize it distinctly reminds me of the being from my dream. The connection sends a ripple of fear through me, but also a strange sense of familiarity, of destiny. Whatever this symbol represents, it's tied to the vision I had, to the promise of something more, something beyond the grind of daily life. But as the sigils loom larger, covering more of the walls, that uneasy feeling in my gut refuses to be silenced. This is not the world I know. This is something darker, something that demands I leave my old life behind entirely. Ari seems to navigate these strange symbols as if they are a guide, leading us through the labyrinthine depths of the Hive. I follow her closely, too afraid to stray even a few paces from her side. The stories I've heard about the lower levels are enough to keep me glued to her. Tales of murderers, rapists, thieves, and things far worse that lurk in the darkness. I stay so close to her that it almost feels as if I'm clinging to her, seeking the safety her presence seems to promise. After what feels like an eternity of winding through narrow, shadowed passages, we finally arrive at what appears to be our destination. I take in the sight before me. Crenellations and buttresses jutting out from the structure, a large triangular roof rising above us. The open doorway beckons, and as my eyes adjust to the dim light, I notice remnants of stained glass windows, shattered and forlorn. That's when I realize where we are. This was once a church of the God Emperor, but it no longer belongs to him. Everywhere an Aquila once stood proud, that strange purple sigil has been scrawled over it, defacing the sacred symbols. The once holy site is now a twisted reflection of what it used to be, and the sight sends a chill down my spine. Ari leads me up the steps, and two burly men in robes step forward to block our path. They are imposing, their presence demanding respect. Ari narrows her eyes at them, and her mouth moves, but the sounds that emerge are nothing like the words I'm used to hearing. It's a language of chittering and clicking, alien to my ears. The unease I've been pushing down surges back to the surface, my heart quickening in response. Sensing my discomfort, Ari turns to me, her expression softening.
Do not worry, Barddus. It is a secret language we have learned to keep the nobles from discovering our plans.
She locks eyes with me, and once again I find myself inexplicably believing her, even as a voice in the back of my mind tells me I shouldn't. We ascend the stairs, and that's when things take an even stranger turn. I catch a clearer glimpse of the guards' faces, and something about them isn't right. Their skin is paler than it should be, almost pinkish in hue, and the shape of their heads is subtly off, elongated in a way that's unsettling. Yet in every other aspect they appear to be human. My instincts scream that something is wrong, but I push the thoughts aside, telling myself it's just the shadows playing tricks on my mind. After all, if Ari trusts them, shouldn't I? We pass the guards and I find myself in awe as I look around. The vast space is filled with people, more than I ever imagined would gather in such a place. And what astonishes me most is the sheer variety of those present. There are men and women in silken robes, their ears and fingers adorned with glittering jewelry, their finery a stark contrast to the grime and decay of the Hive. I gasp, barely able to believe what I'm seeing. Nobles. And then, something even more surprising catches my eye. A man stands among the crowd, still clad in the armor and garb of the Argentum PDF. My heart skips a beat as I recognize the heraldry on his chest. He is no ordinary soldier. He is the PDF commander, the man in charge of the entire Argentum armed forces. The realization hits me like a physical blow, leaving me reeling. What is he doing here, among these people, in this defiled place? We push through the throng, making our way to what was once the pulpit, where an ecclesiarch had likely preached to his flock in days long past. But the pulpit has been replaced by a crude throne, and above it, crafted from scrap and salvaged finery, is something that stops me dead in my tracks. It is long, elongated, filled with great fangs, a monstrous visage that should fill me with dread. And yet, despite its grotesque appearance, there is something undeniably pleasing about it, something that comforts me rather than repels. Seated on the throne is a man of indeterminate age, but as soon as I lay eyes upon him, I feel an immense pool of wisdom emanating from his very presence. His skin is the same pallid hue as the guards, but more pronounced, almost luminescent in the dim light. His bald head and slanted black eyes give him an otherworldly appearance, and his shoulders are draped in thick voluminous robes that add to his imposing aura. In one outstretched hand he holds a scepter, crafted from bronze, and ending in a sculpted replica of the sigils I've seen defacing the church. I blink, then blink again, hardly able to believe what I'm seeing. His hands, there are too few fingers, and each one ends in a sharp, black talon. When he lifts his head and his eyes settle on me, I feel a sensation that is both familiar and utterly overwhelming. It's similar to what I felt in Ari's presence, but far, far more intense, more consuming. His voice is a soothing baritone that instantly calms my frayed nerves. There is a warmth to it, a paternal kindness that seems to wrap around me like a blanket.
Welcome back home, my Magus. You have been busy, I see, bringing another wayward, oppressed soul to my flock.
Ari steps forward, and to my astonishment, she takes one knee before the man. Her obeisance is not just a gesture, it's palpable, a wave of reverence that seems to wash over the entire room, like the prelude to a storm.
I have, my Patriarch,
she says, her voice filled with devotion. The realization of who or what this man is begins to dawn on me, but before I can fully grasp it, I am overcome by a strange sense of belonging, of finding something I didn't even know I was searching for. The doubts, the fears, the unease, they all seem to fade away into the background as I stand before this being, as if in his presence, all the answers I've ever sought are within reach.